Warning: the following episode discusses graphic content some audiences may find triggering. Content includes, but is not limited to, sexual assault, domestic violence, illegal drug use, and suicide. If you or anyone you know has been a victim or in need of help, please reach out to the appropriate parties or contact your local authorities. Please remember, I hear you, I stand by you, and you are loved. Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's your host, Mish, for Stories I Shouldn't Tell. And with me today is no stranger to podcasting, as he once had a show dedicated to the New York Giants. Not only that, he's one of my childhood best friends, so you know I have to be careful with what I say because he has plenty of embarrassing stories about me. Ladies and gentlemen, my boy, John Janovsky. How's it going, bro?
What's up, Mish? How's it going? Good to be here. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me, first and foremost.
Of
Love
course,
what you're
man.
doing. Love what you're
Thank
doing
you.
with the platform and keep it up. It's obviously, you're reaching out and trying to get the best out of people and that's what everybody strives for is the best. So keep it up.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. That's really kind of you to say. I'm happy. I kind of feel a little honored too because, we were talking um, previously before we actually got you on the platform, and I I was kind of trying to feel you out, and then you kind of outright just said like, "Hey, I'd love to share my story on your platform," and I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And the fact that this is really like your first time going public with it was is that accurate?
Yep,
Yeah. So
100%. Yep.
So I really, I thank you for being vulnerable and for sharing what you're going to share with us and kind of letting people in. I know that's hard, and at the same time, I know that everything that you've gone through, when someone listens to it, when someone hears it, they're going to take something from it. So again, I think that's really big of you. So thank you for being vulnerable with us today.
Nah, yeah, of course. I mean, that's what it's about. I don't like using the cliches, but you can't keep what you have without giving it away. And if one person takes anything from this story and it prevents them from going down the path that I went down, then it was totally worth it at the end of the day. Obviously I did it the hard way, the super, super hard way, but you know, it at the end, once you get to the end of it and you get into recovery and you see the blessings that you can get from it, it's 100% totally worth it at the end of the day, and you don't have to go through all the struggles I went through to get there. So, like I said, if we can hit one person that that clicks with them, then it was totally worth it, 100%.
I agree with you, man. So let's kind of open it up a little bit. Obviously we're going to talk about your recovery, but before we get to the actual recovery, can we start at like when you started using and kind of go from there?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably started around age 12, drinking in, we're not gonna name any names, people's basements. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was 12. We got introduced probably around 13. I was kind of a late bloomer on that. My friends kind of started doing that before me. And then I noticed, like, all right, now I'm not hanging out with my friends as much anymore. So let me smoke too, so that way we can all hang out. I was always the type of person that I wanted to be involved in everything, and if I felt like I was being excluded, I'd do whatever I needed to do to get re-included, basically. I was a people
Yeah.
pleaser, do whatever what they wanted me to do. I was out there doing the nonsense, I'll bring $20 and I'll get the Dutch type of stuff. I mean, it happened to everybody, but
Right.
that's how that started. And it kind of just progressed from there. I mean, the weed. The weed was a constant thing all through probably from 13 to 17. And then, that's when it got serious after I called my first charge when I was 17. Oprah police thought I was Pablo Escobar or something. They thought I was moving pounds and pounds. It wasn't even like that. It was just, basically to make money so I could smoke for free. Um, Called the first charge. I had a great attorney. He got me out of a got me out of a lot of stuff. Um, but it started with, all right, you're gonna go to this JCC program, Juvenile Conference Community. So basically, there was a board of people. There was the lady that played the organ at Most Holy Redeemer on the board, which is super weird. And then there were some other people. And I was also required to go to an IOP. Um, I wasn't smart enough at that time to know that the IOP is going to send those drug tests back to the JCC. So obviously, I didn't complete the JCC. So they put me on probation.
Mm.
Uh, with Ann. And I know a lot of people know about her. Pretty much anybody that's ever been in trouble in Old Bridge, they've had Ann. Um,
Fortunately, I haven't had the pleasures of meeting Anne.
nah, pleasure meeting her. I never. It's funny. I'll tell you this one quick story. I remember one time I went to go see her, and she goes, "So how you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm doing pretty good. Playing the game with her." And she slides this piece of paper across the table to me, and I flip it over and I look at it, and it was a Facebook status. And it said, "Piss test me all you want. I'm gonna smoke when I'm ready." And I went, "Oh shit." But you know, I mean, she was cool with me.
Right.
She was always very, giving me second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth chances. Um, I know a lot of my friends weren't that lucky with her. Because they just would blatantly lie to her. I'd be straight up with her. They'd be like, "Yeah, drug test. I'm gonna fail a drug test." Like, and
Yeah.
I got lucky with that. I was finally able to complete that, but I was still going to that IOP, and that's kind of where the weed stopped, and we moved on to harder drugs. Let's just put it that way.
So, just a quick question in regards to, so you caught the charge when you were 17, right? Did you end
Hmm.
up graduating high school or did you
Yeah,
you did all right.
yeah.
So,
I graduated high school. There should be about seven other people's names on that diploma, but I graduated. I took Spanish too, probably three times, because you needed 2 years of a language to graduate. So my sophomore year, I was at the GNC taking Spanish one again, and I'll never forget. It was senior year, and I was still taking Spanish too. And teacher came up to me. He's like 2 weeks left in school, and he goes, "Oh, your average is like a 20 something." I'm like, "Oh." I was like, he's like, "You need this to graduate." He's like, "If you could complete one sentence to me in Spanish, I'll pass you for the year." And I'm like, "Seriously?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "All right." And I remember, I'm obviously not, again, not gonna say names, but I remember this kid that used to be wild in school. He used to give teachers hell every time, bro. Every
yeah, we
time
did.
there's a sub, this kid would just go off. And I remember him always saying this phrase. And I was like, and I asked him one day, I'm like, "Yo, is that Spanish?" He's like, "Yeah." So I went up to that teacher one day and I said, "Yo, I got my sentence." And he goes, "All right, shoot." And I was like, "All right, mi gato en mi pantalones es en fuego." And he's like, "There's a cat in your pants and it's on fire." I was like, "Yup." And he's like, I was like, "That's a sentence?" He's like, "I'll accept it." I said, "All right, cool." So, I barely graduated. It got close to the point where they were, telling me I wasn't gonna walk. And
Yeah.
obviously, at that age, you don't want to disappoint your parents because that's a big milestone in anybody's life is, graduating high school. And obviously, I wanted to see my parents, have me, walk across that stage, and they got to see that. So at the end of the day, I wasn't the greatest student, but I did what I had to do to get the diploma. Let's just put it that way.
Nah, I hear that, brother, man. So 17, you caught the charge. What was your parents' reactions? Because I personally know your parents, so I can only
Hmm.
imagine how they reacted, but I'd like to actually know.
Okay, so it's actually pretty funny. They arrest me, right? And they bring me to the wrong house originally. They're like, "All right, get out." And I'm like, "This isn't my house." And they're like, "Yeah, it is. Get out." I'm like, "No, seriously, it's not. Like, look at my ID. This ain't my house." So they bring me to the right house, ring my doorbell because they have a search warrant. They have a search warrant for the car and my house.
Hmm.
So they ring the doorbell. My dad answers the door. I walk in handcuffs, and I'll never forget it. My mom was cooking dinner. They sat me down at the kitchen table. They went upstairs, tore my room apart to pieces. You know what I mean? I remember my mom, coming over with the fork and giving me a little, whatever she made for dinner that night. And then, basically, they were having a conversation with my dad that I really didn't hear because I was still at the kitchen table. And then eventually they came and got me, said, "All right, stand up." And we started walking out the front door. And to this day, I'll never forget that. I remember looking back, and my brother's almost 6'2" now, but he was young at the time. And you know the setup of my house, how the banister is. He was holding on to the banister, looking through that, watching me get taken out in handcuffs at probably 9, 8, 9 years old, something like that.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things, obviously I regret, having him see those things, and then the other things that, I did during the course of my addiction, you know, um, but luckily for him, he turned out to be, he's an author now. He's doing great. He's actually moving back to New Jersey shortly. So,
Good. That's
luckily
awesome.
I didn't screw him up. But I'll never
Yeah.
forget that. That'll always be ingrained in my memory. Anytime I walk up the steps or past that little part of the stairs, like, I always get that flashback, and it's like, you know, you either learn from those mistakes or you keep making them. I mean, I kept
Yeah.
making them for a while, but eventually I was able to, put it together and put an end to it once and
I
for
hope
all.
that eventually you forgive yourself for that. You know what I mean? Because that's an important part too of your healing. Is going to be, forgiving yourself for being that way. It might take time, but
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, when
I hope it
I came
started.
home, I
Yeah.
think it was 2018, and I remember having a conversation with my brother, and talking to him, and we talked for about 20 minutes. And the end of it, he gave me a hug. And he told me he loved me, and I hadn't heard that from him, and probably since we were kids. You know what I mean? We really didn't
Yeah.
get along as kids. We were kind of on two different spectrums. He's in the
Polar
LGBT community.
opposites.
Polar,
For sure.
yeah,
Yeah,
big
for sure.
sports fan. He was singing show tunes, like,
Yeah.
he was always showing you his dances and stuff.
He was a
But
cute kid, man. I
music,
enjoyed him.
yeah, yo,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and now he's an author, writing. Um, I'm probably not gonna say this right, but it's more for the LGBTQ community. So he was very big into rom-coms when he was a kid. So
Yeah.
they're basically stories like that. Like, there's some holiday ones, there's some regular ones. I think he's on book 9 right now. So
Oh wow. It's awesome.
yeah,
Hopefully we'll
he's
get him
been
on.
he's been grinding. He's definitely been, putting, not pen to paper anymore, but typing on away on that computer every time he's home, he's typing away, and just he enjoys what he does. And You know, I was telling him when I seen him how proud I am for how far he came. You know what I mean? Because
It's
a
awesome.
lot of people were saying, at the time, especially like, when he came out to my parents, it was, that was obviously a big step for him. And then I think the worry that my mom had was my nanny was a very, very, very religious Catholic. Went to church Monday through Sunday for as long as she could.
Yeah.
And they were worried about that conversation, how that was going to turn out. And the day she made that phone call and told my nanny that, this is exactly what she said, word for word. She said, "That's my grandson. I'm gonna love him regardless." And
That's
that's
awesome.
that's how
That
that
makes me
went.
happy.
So Yeah,
I'm glad that he had a good experience because it's, unfortunately not everyone does. So I'm happy that your family
yeah,
did accept him and didn't view him any
hmm
differently because
yeah,
regardless, he's always going to be Timmy. So,
yeah, yep.
yeah.
My little brother, even though he's way bigger than me now, but
He's got your dad's height then because your dad was a tall fella, man.
yeah, I mean, I always make that joke. I'm like, oh, you didn't need all that height to be in the plays and write books. I played freshman football. I needed the height. Like, that's why
Yeah.
freshman year was my first and last year playing football because I was getting killed by, freshmen that were, 6'2", 260 and getting
Crazy,
demolished
man.
by them. I'm like, I'm not, this ain't for me. Didn't play a single snap for my freshman year. Didn't play one down. Didn't get on the field once. So
Not
that
even
was
for
kind of
JV?
nah. That was just freshman. I tried to go
Oh,
out sophomore year because somebody told me, hey, we don't have like that many kids. So I went to the field house and talked to the coach, and I'm like, hey, like I know the sophomore team, don't got a lot of players. I'm willing to play. He goes, oh no, you didn't show up on the first day. Nah. So he basically told me no. So I went home, and that was that. And
damn.
I don't think it was gonna really change anything because I thought maybe I hit a growth spurt at some point. That never happened. So I
Yeah, man.
stayed. You know, I'm 5'9", is about as tall as I got. And apparently I shrunk because they when I went for my orthopedic thing for my ankle, they told me I was 5'7". I said I don't think so, but you know,
No. Yeah, man. Maybe who knows? Maybe when you hurt your ankle, you might have taken a couple
yeah, it
inches.
might have shrunk me a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I was just like, damn, really? I was like,
Yeah,
yeah, we're
man.
gonna keep it as five. Well, I'll keep it as 5'10" on my dating profile over 5'9", whatever it says.
What's up, story seekers? I've talked about this product before, and I will never stop telling you the secret to keeping my hair soft and hydrated. Rich Roots keeps my hair feeling soft and hydrated. I know it says beard grooming conditioner, but guess what? It's all natural ingredients, so that means it works on any hair and any type of hair, plus your skin. Don't believe me? Then try it out yourself. Head over to myrichroots.com and use code STORIES to save some money. That's STORIES at checkout. Buy some for the man you love or the woman you love, or if you love yourself, buy it for yourself because that's what I do. So you get booked at 17. Did you actually have to do any time though? Or it was just you kind of got booked and bailed out?
Nah, I got booked and released to my parents because I was a juvenile at 17, and then I went through the JCC thing, and then
Gotcha.
I,
Okay.
completed probation eventually. But I was still going to the IOP, and like I mentioned earlier, and that's kind of where the harder drugs got introduced
Yeah.
because, I was getting to the point where I was still smoking every day, and I'd be like, oh, I got 30 days clean, blah, blah, blah. And then, our counselor, Kurt, would pull out the sheet and be like, oh, really? You just failed your last drug test. How many days you really got? I'm like, oh, I got a zero then. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about that. You said that the harder drugs got introduced. What was that like? How did that happen?
um, I'll never forget it. I was at IOP, right by the Wawa on 34, that little house that's right up close to the road. That was the IOP. Um, it was raining outside, and we went on a smoke break, and I remember getting in this kid's car, and he goes, "Man, Kurt's been getting on your ass about the weed." I'm like, "Yeah, bro, like I don't get it. Like I'm not hurting nobody, blah blah blah." And he opens his center console and he pulls out a pill bottle and shakes him. He goes, "These are out of your system in 2 days." And I'm like, "What are those?" And he pulls them out, and they were, perk 30s, blues. And me being 18 at the time, naive, I was curious. I'm like, "What are they?" And he's like, they just make you feel good." And I'm like, all right. He's like, it's kind of like weed. I'm like, okay, like, 2 days,
Hmm.
blah, blah, blah. And I was like, how much? And he said 20. And I'm like, well, for one, and then I end up buying it, and he's like, "Listen, if you've never done it before, just take half." And I'll never forget taking that half, and he's like, just crush it up and sniff it, and I did, and I remember that feeling I got, and I was like, "This is it. This is what I need to feel like,"
Mm,
and that continued for a long, long, long time,
okay.
but I'll never forget it.
Did you start pushing that too, so that you could do it for free, like you were saying, like with the smoking for free almost, or?
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes it was harder. Um, the pain clinics were huge in Florida back in, I think like it started in '06, '05-ish, a
Mm,
little before I started doing it. And there'd be people, people obviously not gonna mention names, but that would sponsor you to basically take the ride to Florida, go to the pain clinic, get the stuff, split it up with them, and you know, I never did that personally, but I would find people for him to go, so then he'd break me off that way. But
mm,
I never did that personally. But there's documentaries about it out now. It was just crazy. Like you would go there, and there would literally be all 50 states in the parking lot of license plates, and they were
that's
literally just
crazy.
handing them out like candy. It was like it was nothing, and they were just,
That's crazy.
looking back at it now, the damage they caused was irreversible at that point because, once they became too expensive, probably around 2008, 2009-ish, they started, cutting down on that. They started closing all these clinics, so nobody was able to get the pills anymore. So that's when people started turning to the heroin. It was cheaper, more accessible, easier to get, and that's kind of where that happened, and that took off, and that was probably around 19. I did that for the first time, and I was like, oh, this is basically the same thing, you know,
So like
and
2010,
it was 2009, 2000, that was
2009.
probably around 2009, yeah,
Hmm. Okay. Yeah. Wow, man. I'm just trying to think back because I know we graduated '09. That's why.
yeah.
Yeah.
And '09 was a wild year, and like I said, I barely graduated, and that had a lot to do with it. We were we were doing it in school too. Like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I knew people that were doing it in school. I'll never,
right off the people would literally sit there and like put their folders up, and all of a sudden you hear
Yeah.
and
Yep.
you'd look, and then they close the folder, put it down, and then you just sit there like, nothing happened. But if you knew and you were in that lifestyle, you knew exactly what they just did. But
Yeah. I'll never forget, man. I mean, this was junior year, so 2007, 2008, I guess.
mm,
Yeah. And the my best friend at the time, she was hanging around with these kids that actually they dealt blues and stuff like that. And
mm,
she ended up you know doing them, and there was one day where, and she never forced it on me to do that kind
mm,
of stuff, but it was like she didn't force it on me, but she wanted me to like kind of try it, and I
right,
wasn't down with that. Like I was cool with smoking and stuff, um
mm,
but I wasn't down with pills or anything like that.
mm,
But there was one day where they couldn't get blues, right? And so they had given her this for Ritalin. It was Ritalin. I mean, they had
yeah,
given her Ritalin, right? And she didn't like the way that it made her feel, gave her like heart palpitations, and she just felt like shit, right? And
yeah,
so we were at lunch, and she was like, "Oh man, like they couldn't get me blues, but they gave me this instead." Like she's like, "Can you take it? Can you take it?" And I was like, nah, I don't want to take that. You know what I mean? But then, you start to feel like the peer pressure, kind of feel like a little bitch and
mm,
stuff, right? And then so finally,
yep,
like towards the end of lunch, and I'll never forget because like we were sitting at a table and my friends that were seniors were sitting with us. Um, And my one friend who was a senior, she was like looking at me like yo, don't give in kind of thing. Like don't, you know,
Mhm.
don't take it if you don't want to, you know. But I just peer pressure, and then I broke, and I was just like, fine, I'll take it. And like I went, like I was gonna go put my tray back, and I just took it and I popped the pill. And the next period, 9, 10, I'm feeling the heart palpitations. Yo,
Mhm.
I was so fucked up in school. I just remember like laying strewn like just across my desk, like just like,
Mhm.
and the teacher is looking over and asking my friend, because we were known to kind of get in trouble in that class anyway. And
Mhm.
the teacher was like, is she okay? And my friend's like, yeah, she's fine. Like meanwhile I'm like, oh my god, this is the worst feeling in the world. I'll never do this again. I can see why she didn't like it. It made me feel
Mhm.
horrible. So that
Yeah.
kind of, I think that turned me off from like doing any kind of pill.
Any kind of pills, yeah. And I
Yeah,
mean,
man.
Ritalin is, yeah. I mean, Ritalin is also an ADHD medication, so it's an
Hmm.
amphetamine, and the perk 30s are, painkillers, so they're completely different
Completely
spectrum of
different. Yeah.
drugs. And,
Yeah, I didn't
it's
understand that
just,
at the time. you know?
nah, because we were kids, we were young, naive, didn't know any
Yeah.
better. And just, again, like you said, the peer pressure, I
Yeah.
always wanted to fit in, you know what I mean? Not in probably in a bad way, right? Like I wasn't popular in high school or anything like that, but I had a lot of different friends and a lot of different friend groups,
That's how
so it
I felt.
wasn't like,
Yeah.
I was a loner or anything like that, but like, I wasn't, getting invited to all these big parties and stuff like that, but like I was
Same.
always sociable and nice with the people that were looked at as kind of like outcasts maybe or like weirdos or something, like whatever the case may be. But I think that being like that kind of led me to where it's at now, where it's like, you know, once you get to know somebody, just because you think like from the outside, right? You look at him like, yo, wow, this kid's a weirdo. Why is he making these noises, doing this? You're doing whatever you're doing. And then you get to talk to him and you're like, wow, it's a pretty cool kid. Like, he, whatever. And you bond on whatever level you bond on. It's just getting to know people. We
Yeah.
were, you know, in high school, we were very, obviously there was the cliques, there was the, people that were bullying people and doing all that. Like, I don't, I'm sure people, they never said anything to my face, but I'm sure stuff was being said behind my back and I've heard it, would hear it from people, and it would bother me to the point of like, damn, like why doesn't this person like me?
Mm.
And that kind of pushed the, oh, let me do these other things with these other people, and come to turn out, all the people I was hanging out with, they weren't really my friends. They were just, what can we get from John? All right, well, if John gets blue, he'll give me a half, stuff like that. It was just,
Yeah.
they weren't my friends. They were just,
They were mooching off of you,
yeah,
call it
they were
what it
just,
is. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
they were
man.
just other addicts. That's just what it was.
Yeah, I mean, when you put it that way, they were just other addicts.
Hmm.
It's tough, man. So I know that you eventually ended up in Florida, and you had said that you kind of wanted to talk about that. Was there something that happened before that led you to Florida, or how was
Yeah.
it?
So, I don't remember exactly like exactly what happened. I remember my mom found a pill bottle in my house, and we ended up in kind of a little wrestling match for him. And shortly after that, I got kicked out of my house. And I remember thinking like, what the fuck am I gonna do? You know what I mean? I was dating this girl at the time, and like she came and picked me up, and then I ended up staying in somebody's house, and then I'm trying to call her, she's not picking up the phone anymore. Then I stayed at somebody else's house for a couple days, and then I ended up at my grandparents' house, and I'm thinking to myself, a lot of people were telling me, "Oh, yo, go to Florida, like get a fresh start," and it sounded appealing at the time. You know what I mean? Get away from all this, go to a new area where you can kind of be like a new person, reinvent yourself, I guess.
Yeah.
But, what I know now is, I brought myself with me to Florida. You know what I mean? Nothing changed. I was still the same person. I still had that same mentality. Like, it didn't change. And I was there. It was supposed to be 6 months, and I was there for probably about 7 years.
What part of Florida?
All over. I mean, I started in Boca. I spent a lot of time in Broward County. I mean, I was all over that godforsaken state. I was in Umatilla, Florida. Most people never heard of it. Like,
Yeah, I don't even
I
know where that
was
is.
Orlando, like just up and down, because I was getting to the point where, I know in the text I said I had the black card of insurances, right?
Yeah.
And basically that was a Aetna PPO policy. And basically that just paid the most. Like I literally in my closet right now have bills from rehabs for $100,000. It's like for 100 bands, you should have cured me. Like what? So they were, the insurance with the drug tests and everything else, and then like after I was there, in Boca House, I remember there was a tech we used to call Trouble, my boy Tommy. I still talk to him to this day. Um, he was working there, and they ended up firing him over some stupid stuff. And I remember we were like, all right, you gonna fire him? Just we're gonna buck everything. No groups. You ain't gonna do no chores, nothing. And I remember one day we were at Foundations. He was working there, and we all walked over to the main complex compound they have over there. And Carlo was just sitting at that main desk, and there was about 20 of us, 20 deep, walking down that path. Bro, he closed and locked that door so quick because he thought like we were gonna do something to him. We were basically just gonna talk to him, try to get Trouble's job back, because
Mm.
Trouble was the one that kept everybody in line. Like people didn't do their chores. You would get something called a jam, which was like, a knock or whatever, and you'd have to do chores, pick up cigarette butts, whatever the case may be. But he was the type of person, he always told me from day one, he's like, hey, listen, the barter system's in full effect. So like, if he would come and wake me up to do something, right? And if I left a $5 bill laying on my side table, so he can go get a coffee or a monster or whatever, he wouldn't wake me up at 8 o'clock. You know what I mean? He'd let me sleep. He'd come back and get me later, stuff like that. And so they ended up firing him permanently, and he ended up in Port St. Lucie. And I remember he hit me up, and he's like, "Yo," he's like, "You gotta come to Port St. Lucie. It's way better out here." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I gotta get kicked out of here first."
Mm.
And he's like, "Yeah," he goes, the insurance wouldn't, whatever. And I was doing everything I could to get kicked out of that place. I was shooting the laudits right on, like literally in the like little apartment things, and there's like a little screened in patio. Doing them right there. People walking past, they weren't, they would drug test me. They wouldn't. It literally took me going to a little corner store over there, buying a Four Loco, walking back, walking into the office, cracking it open, taking a sip in front of the person, and then they were like, "All right, yeah, that's it. You gotta go." And that's how I ended
But
up
it
with
was because they
PSL.
just wanted to keep getting paid by insurance. That's why they wouldn't let you go.
Yeah,
Damn.
yeah, that's exactly why. I found this out later. They stole 5 grand off my dad's credit card, just cause, because you'd have a card on file, right, for whatever, cigarettes, whatever the case was. You need clothes, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And like I said, I found that out much later. And,
That's
I
crazy.
found out, yeah, it was nuts. I mean, we could literally have a whole podcast about, about Florida because that place was bananas. And it was funny, I just found out not that long ago, the guy Carlo, he wasn't the owner, but he was like, he was high up in there. And I was talking to my boy Matt, who also used to work at Boca House. He goes, "You want to know how he died?" I was like, "Nah, how'd he die?" He goes, "Drunk in his bed." No, no. I mean, karma's a bitch. It's gonna come catch up to you one time or another. You're gonna try to,
Yeah.
try to make all this money off people and give them 3 drug tests a week so you can send it to the lab and get more money. And once you get greedy, that's when
That's the thing,
you get
man.
on the radar.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
greed
when you get
kills,
on the
man.
radar. hmm And that's how a lot of the places in Florida started going down because people got greedy. You don't know how many phone calls I get from the Delray Beach DEA task force about, hey, we found your file at XYZ rehab. Can we open it? I'm like, yeah, go ahead. I don't care. Because the feds would come and shut it down. I
Right.
was at a halfway house in Delray and literally watched the jump out boys, the guys in the cars, with the doors open, pull down the street where there was a rehab and a halfway house. And I literally watched them pull on that street. I walked down and they were jumping out, bro. They were taking computers. They were arresting people. It was a whole to
It's a whole
do, and
raid.
they
Yeah.
they just yeah, they basically raided the place and shut it down. And they called me about the owner of the facility at one point, and I said, listen, I said I don't got a bad thing to say about him because he helped me in a lot of situations where my insurance was just not covering anything anymore because I've been to so many places. Like literally, I couldn't even get into brand new places that just opened. Like it was that bad. Like they literally hear my name, they be like, "Hey, yeah, we got John Chinap." Click, and they hang up. Like so that's why I was, all over the state trying to go to different places, and it got bad. It got real bad.
I wanted to ask you what happened in Port Lucia, was it?
Port St. Lucie.
Yeah, Port St. Yeah.
All right, so basically, after they finally kicked me out, Trouble literally drove with his buddy Ozzy like 2.5 hours. I was chilling at that little convenience store waiting for him, drinking Four Locos, waiting for him. He picks me up, we go there, and it was kind of the same thing. Like I wasn't ready. I was,
So
we
what
were.
was better about it? Because he said that this place is so much better. What was he referring to?
Well, he told me it was better than Boca House, so that was
Right.
my thinking of like, all right, this is gonna be the place that works, right?
Mm.
So when I got there, he's doing my intake, and we're sitting there, and I put my phone down, and he slides it back to me. You're not supposed to have your phone in rehab. I had my phone. Um, so I was getting, they were they're letting me get away with certain things, and like you're not supposed to have energy drinks. He would take us to the store and let us buy
So you
monsters and
wanted
stuff. Like,
someone to restrict you. You wanted someone to discipline you and hold you accountable. That's what you were looking for. What's up, story seekers? If you didn't know, I once was a lip pack and talk smack and tobacco loving chewer and dipper. I've since quit the habit, but sometimes I miss the feeling of packing a fat boy in my lip. I won't turn back to nicotine or tobacco dip due to health concerns that come with it. But like I said, I miss the feeling. Then I discovered NZE pouches, not your typical nicotine pouches because they don't have nicotine at all. Each pouch is actually endotropic, which means it helps support cognitive health and gets absorbed quicker in the body since you set it and forget it in your lip. NZE pouches have so many flavors, all of which are banging, but my favorite and my go-to is the black cherry flavor. There's also two types to pick from, focus or energy, depending on your mood. Head over to their website, nzepouches.com, and use code STORIES at checkout, STORIES, and save yourself some money. Quit dipping and start using NZE pouches. Hey there, story seekers. Are you tired of the tedious workout attire? You know, the average positive message, but it doesn't really get the point across. It doesn't really resonate with you because you're too badass and rough around the edges to wear something cute. I've got the apparel just for you, something that's a little more kick ass. Check out the brand Iron Outlaws and buy yourself clothes that matches your attitude. You can't hit a PR wearing something subpar when you're the kind of person who wants to run through a wall. No, you need something tough. Use code STORIES at checkout and become part of the Outlaw family because average isn't for everyone.
well, yeah, yeah. At the end of the day, that's what you would expect from these people, right? And like I'm
But
not
what
gonna
did
say
you
anything
expect?
bad
I
about.
mean, you know? You're saying that's what we
Uh,
expect. I'm asking because it sounds like that's like you wanted someone to help you through this, like help you get out of it, because you
Yeah,
knew you
looking
couldn't
at
kind
it
of.
now, yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously looking at it now, and like I say it all the time, hindsight's 2020. You
Right.
know, I was 20 years old at the time, right? I wasn't in the right mindset or the mind frame to get clean. Like I was just kind of there for the ride at that point. And I was
Mm.
like, eventually, I'll get it, I'll go home, but like it was kind of like we were having fun. You know what I mean? Like that
Yeah.
rehab that he worked at in Port St. Lucie, I was probably at like 7 or 8 times, like
It's like going to college for all that time. You know what I mean? Like that was like your college.
basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I should have a degree in something. Addictionology or whatever the hell they want to call it. But I mean, it was just, it went but then they would stop taking me in Port St. Lucie. Then I'd be back in Broward. Then I'd be back in Delray. Then they shipped me to Orlando. Then I'd be back in, Pompano or wherever. Like I, I've been all over that state, literally. And I told people this before. I will never go back to Florida ever again. Not to go on vacation. Nothing. I said there's only two ways I would go back to Florida. That would be one would be to bring, if I ever have a, kid, bring them to Disneyland or go to the Keys. Because that's literally the only two places, I didn't go. And literally one of the rehabs I went to was literally right by Disneyland. I could see the ball from the rehab. Like it was wild. It was the whole experience was just very looking back at it now, like I said, hindsight's 2020. Like I just thought I was having fun. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah. Were you
sneaking
still getting in
girls,
trouble out there?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I got
Like law
the
trouble and
first.
shit?
Oh yeah, I got arrested in Broward County was the first arrest I got, and they sent me to the main jail, and that's a 7-story jail, and
What'd you get booked for,
there's
if you don't
some
mind me asking?
that time that might have been the battery. I forget. But they had me booked, but my parents had no idea where I was, so I kept trying to call home, but I have no money on the phone, so I can't call. Like, if you're in state, you can make phone calls,
Mm.
but I'm out of state, so I couldn't even call from booking. So like they had no idea I was there for probably about, I don't know, it was like maybe a week. And then finally one day I called and the phone actually rang and my mom answered. And I'm like, why am I still here? Because my bail was only like $500 or something. You know what I mean? And I spent my 20-minute phone call yelling at her like, why am I still here when I was there because of the decisions I made? You know what I mean? So I mean, eventually I got out and went to treatment, but that wasn't the first time in jail. Um, there was a couple more times I ended up in jail. For stupid stuff too, like nonsense, like stealing a phone charger. The worst one was a pack of
Wait, you really got
Starburst.
locked up for stealing a phone charger?
Phone charger from Walmart. And like I
That's
can say
crazy.
this because the statute of limitations are up, but like we used to walk when the Walmarts are open 24 hours. We would literally walk out of those Walmarts with like three TVs in the car, put them in the car, and disappear. And nobody said nothing to you. But the time I get, I AMA from rehab and they give me my phone and I have no charger and I go in and just steal one, that's what I get caught for. It's like, what? So I just had bad luck with the nonsense. I think the Starburst was the worst one because when I got locked up for that, bro, they were laughing at me hard. They were like, "No way, you got locked up for Starburst." Like, yeah, I swear to God, I showed them the paper, and they were like, "Nah, he ain't lying. He got locked up for Starburst."
That's crazy, man. Walmart too? Or was that a different?
Walmart, yeah, it was Walmart, Target, any place that, because there's a point too in Florida where, like, moving around so much, you don't know where the drugs are, right? Or where you need to go to get the drugs.
Mm.
So I would go to stores and steal triple C's and eat them like candy. And
You
my
said
boy,
triple C's?
my boy Chuck. triple C's, yeah, because like they'd just be out on the shelf and you take a box or two and
What's that?
eat 10 or 12 it's chloroquine cough and cold. It has dextromethorphan in it and it basically makes you hallucinate,
Mm,
to make you trip. So when I was in an area where I couldn't find what I was looking for, I would go into a Walmart, Target, CVS, Walgreens, whatever the case was, and steal those because I knew it was gonna get me, messed up. And I mean, it got me so messed up to the point where I was hallucinating the craziest shit. Like I thought one time I was in the hospital and I thought my family was there. They weren't there. I was hallucinating that, and it was just, it got to the point where it was like, I was getting banned from all these stores and not allowed in them. And then a couple stores started locking them up. And it was probably because of me, honestly. Like they were behind the glass. You had to bring the buzzer to get them, like, or they were putting them behind at the pharmacy. So they weren't out in the aisle anymore. But I mean, that was probably, I got bad with that. Like, I got
the
to a
quick
point where I was
fix.
eating two boxes of, yeah, quick, just quick. You know what I mean? It kicked in real quick. And I got to a point where I was eating like two boxes of those a day. Like, you get 24 in one box. So I was eating 48 of them. And I was, I don't know how many times I ended up in the psych ward because of that, because, they'd see me, in some random place, at some McDonald's or Burger King charging my phone. My pupils are like this big. So it looks
Mm.
like I'm rolling on ecstasy basically. And, I'd be there for hours on end. Somebody would call the cops when they see me. They bring me to the psych ward and I'd be there for like, like less than 24 hours because then it would wear off. I'd see the doctor and the doctor would be like, why are you even here? I'm like, I don't know. And then they let me go. And then the cycle just kind of repeated itself and it happened quite a few times actually.
And they just released you back to the rehab, right? Like to the halfway house or whatever.
Nah,
Or
they would just put you out on the street. That was,
oh shit!
they
And then
basically
you would
would
just
say,
show
all
up.
right,
My bad. I
well,
was
yeah, I
saying,
mean, they would,
yeah, you just
nah, you're good. I mean, they would basically discharge you from the psych hospital,
right.
and they would have social workers and stuff that are like, oh, we can try to help you. No, no, I'm good. Don't worry about it. I got it. And they let you walk out the front door, and then. I'm back at Walgreens stealing more triple C's, making phone calls to people trying to, get into rehab and stuff.
But at this
And
point,
I
oh, you were trying to get into a rehab. You're saying, like, because you
yeah,
weren't okay. So gotcha. You were in between places.
yeah,
Gotcha. Gotcha.
in
So
between,
where'd
yeah.
you live in between these places? Were you out on the street, man?
Nah, it wasn't like that. I always had, couch hopping places to stay, friends that I knew where I could,
All right. Cool.
spend a couple
Cool.
days. But,
Good.
when they're clean and you're getting high, they're gonna get real tired of you real quick, and you're gonna be out again, and you gotta find somewhere else to go or find another rehab to go to, and it was a vicious cycle. It was a real vicious cycle, and finally that ended. The last time I went to jail was in Okeechobee, Florida. And I remember my public pretender came up to me and goes, "Oh, they're offering you 6 months. You should take it." I'm like, "You're fired, dude. Like, go away." He's like, "So you're gonna represent yourself?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I gave this judge a speech, man, that I should have won an Oscar for, honestly. And he just looked at me and goes, "I've heard this shit before." He goes, "4 months." Man. And I was like, all right, well, at least it wasn't six. But
Yeah.
my birthday was literally like 4 days away, turning 26 when you come off your parents' insurance. So I was trying to get out so I can get into a spot before the insurance kicked. And when he gave me that 4 months, I didn't have that option when I got out. So I ended up, luckily, a friend of mine helped me out, got me into this halfway house. Um, Martell ran it. He unfortunately passed away in a car accident back in 2022. I still remember a lot of the stuff, that he would tell me, and a lot of things that, still resonate with me today. I still go on his Facebook page all the time, because he used to love driving the nice cars.
Yeah.
And when I was staying there, he had the all blacked out Dodge Charger. And, I was doing good at the time. I was staying clean. And he was kind of like, I was kind of like his little co-house manager. He's like, yo, watch these, motherfuckers. Like, keep an eye on 'em, make sure they're not doing no dumb shit. So we would ride around to like the kava bars and stuff and catch these stupid idiots at these places and then throw them in the car, bring him back, and Martell make him go back to rehab or whatever. And that's what we did. And then it was probably about 2018, I think. I was just supposed to come home for Christmas. That was it. And I remember coming home, and I remember I was upstairs on the futon. My dad was on the computer, and I was like, Dad, I was like, I can't go back to Florida. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, the insurance is done. I burned all the bridges. There's no point. Like, where am I gonna go? I'm like, if you want me to go to a place here, I'll go to a place here. I mean, he ended up letting me stay. I'm like, yeah, I have a job in, six, whatever, however many months. And for whatever reason, I mean, I got a new phone, but I mean, the Indeed, bro, I put in thousands and thousands of resumes, and I would occasionally get, a message back, oh, hey, we're interested, blah, blah, blah. I had like out of the thousands the applications I put in, I got one in-person interview and two Zoom interviews, and that was literally it. So I was getting, frustrating.
Yeah.
Like it's like what, like people look at my background and they're like, I'm like, yo, this is 6, 8 years ago. Like I'm not that person anymore. But they just
How
look
old were
at the
you when you got
charges and go,
clean?
oh no, he's no good. I got clean. It was January 2022. I went to this IOP in
Oh,
and
so you got clean
the
here.
funny
You
part
didn't get.
about it is,
Gotcha.
yeah,
Okay.
no, I never got clean in Florida. No, um, when I was dating my ex, she was smoking a lot, so I started smoking again, and that was probably that's like 5, 6 years ago now. But eventually that wasn't enough, and once once fentanyl became prominent, right? And it's basically they're telling you like, all right, like a little grain of sand, if you do that, it's gonna kill you. Like, I'm not the smartest person in the world, but you're not gonna get me like that. It's not gonna happen. So I was doing other things, whatever drug it was, didn't really matter. It was just, trying to fill a void, I guess, is the best way to describe it. And then once I started going to that IOP and I got put on MAT, which is medicated assisted treatment. And people look at that in a lot of different ways. It's basically being on Suboxone maintenance, which
Mm,
is basically what they give you to withdraw off heroin.
yeah.
But instead of you coming off of it permanently, you stay on it. It helps with the cravings, it helps with the, stuff like that. So you stay on it for a prolonged period of time. And people in the rooms look at it a certain way, like, ah, you're not clean, blah, 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 this and that. Like, and it's like, you're not sticking the needle in your arm. Like, what do you mean? Like, and people have their own opinions. Either way, to me, I think it saves lives. That's what it does. You know what I mean? If it wasn't for that, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. You know what I mean? It's just,
Yeah.
and I'll be honest, I'm still on it to this day. You know what I mean? And it's been a little while. You know what I mean? But you know,
Do you have
I,
to be on it for the
it
rest of your
just,
life? Because you
it,
said prolonged. So,
n- no, no, no. You don't have to be on it the rest of your life. Um, and obviously the plan is at some point to come off of it, but I guess that would lead me into my next thing. This happened back in June. Um, I started getting into the sports cards and memorabilia thing, and I went full throttle with it, like balls to the wall. Like wasn't sleeping, was up all night looking at cards and you know checking prices and stuff, and I was not sleeping. There was that one week I slept like 6 hours in one week, and I was just going off on everybody. Didn't matter who it was. I could have known you for 20 years and I was cursing you out for no reason. And I remember coming home one night and I was sitting in my bed and I had a panic attack. And I'm like, I've heard people having panic attacks before, but I never personally had one. So I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And I'm like, yo, I gotta see what's going on. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna continue this trajectory because if I keep doing this to the couple friends that I do have, I'm not gonna have any friends. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I checked myself in the carrier. I think it was like June 14th. Um, I was supposed to go to the rehab side, but I decided to take a 450 milligram edible before I went. And me and Jerome, so I don't even know what happened. So I ended up on the psych side. Um, but I ended up getting diagnosed with severe anxiety. Um, and basically, once I left there, they were like, "Oh yeah, we got you set up to go to this place." It was like right on 516. And then when I'm leaving on Friday, that Friday that I'm leaving, I'm like, "Oh, I'm going right there." They're like, "Oh no, they're gonna call you on Wednesday." I'm like, "What do you mean call me on Wednesday? Like what?" And this was Juneteenth was like a couple days before that, but a lot of people decided to celebrate that holiday that Friday so they can get a 3-day weekend.
Mhm.
And every IOP I called was closed except this one. And I called them up, they answered, and I said, "Hey, listen, like I was looking through their thing, and I was like, oh, this looks like something that." And even thinking at that point, you got, almost 4.5 years. It was more like I need to get out, I need to see people. I hadn't been to an in-person meeting in like 4 years. Um, so I started with that. So I started going there to the little IOP. It's in Cliffwood.
Mhm.
Um, I started going there. I did my intake, and they closed at 7. I wasn't done until like 8:15, 8:30. So they stayed later for me to finish. And I've been going there ever since. You know what I mean? And it's really helped. With the seeing the doctor, being able to see the site. Um,
That's good. That's
I
awesome.
was undiagnosed with ADHD for my whole life pretty much. They told my mom at one point, I forget what grade, they said he needs to go to the doctor. Like he can't sit still. He
Yeah.
can't, whatever. My mom brought me to the doctor and the doctor just said, "Oh, he's just a boy." And that's just kind of what we left it at for the longest time. And I got to the point where, the men's doing the men's thinking, all right, I'm gonna do that. And then I got to the point where I was like, that's just not doing it. And I took the dive to actually get on actual ADHD medication. And I started. They put me on Vyvanse 2 months ago, and I was literally like passing out. And I was like, "What the fuck is going on? Like it's a amphetamine. Like that shouldn't be happening."
Mhm.
And I had an appointment with her this past Monday, and she switched the medication. And this is only day 2, but it's definitely working way more effectively than the other one. Obviously, I'm awake, I'm more alert, I'm more attentive, I'm calmer. And that was another thing I had to do for my sobriety because, like, not saying that I would have went and got high, but like it was starting to get to the point where like I was crashing out. Like I was, not on people physically, but like with myself kind of. And it just got to the point where it's like something's got to be done. I gotta, I gotta do what I need to do to make sure that I'm all right and that the people around me are all right. It wasn't like a thing where people were in harm or anything like that. It was more just I need to take care of this, and I need to take care of it now, and I did. And I could tell you now that I feel 1,000 times better than I did back in June.
That's
By
awesome.
far the best
Good.
I felt in a long time.
Can I ask you that, can I ask you, when you were using, what was the worst thing that you think you did? Cuz you talked about, hurting the people in your life and stuff like that.
Like the worst drug I've ever did, or like the worst.
However you want to answer it. Open floor, you know. The worst thing you did,
I
whether it
mean,
be, or, to a
worst
person
drug.
or.
Yeah. Back in the day, with the blues and everything, we were, when we didn't have any money, conning and scheming. They used to sell these vitamins at CVS that had the little blue V on the back of them, but there was no numbers on the front. And we'd seal them in those, fresh seal bags. And we'd sell them, as, and, beat people and rob people and do all types of stuff. And I've done pretty much every drug under the sun. There's a few I never did meth. I never did PCP. Um, but for the most part, I've tried everything at least once. And
Do you think that you
it
tried it because you?
finally
I'm
it
sorry. Go
finally
on.
got go ahead. No, no, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, do you think that you tried everything under the sun because again you were trying to fit in, or you were chasing that high?
No, I was well, yeah, I was chasing the high, but I was also trying to find something that was gonna make me feel normal. Like I felt like I was abnormal. Like, you're
Mm,
sitting there at a certain point at 26, 27, you're watching people get, people who went to school would have kids get married, and it's like, you know, everybody asks me why I didn't go to the reunion. And I'm like, why would I go to the reunion? Like I still talk to the people that, I was cool with in school, but like at that time I didn't have anything to show for nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like,
sure.
oh what? You got 2 years clean, cool. Like, congratulations. That's what you should be clean. You know what I mean? Like, so it just, deterred me from doing that. But now now I feel differently about myself. I feel like there was a day, I don't know what the exact day was, but I would never look at myself in the mirror going into the bathroom. Never. Because, I thought I was a piece of shit, basically. You know what I mean? Like, and then I remember
Sorry you
one day
felt that
walking
way.
in there and looking at myself, and I'm like, yeah, it was, I'm just being real. And then I remember one day walking in there and like looking at myself and being like, you're a good dude. Like, you still, like, people still call me all the time from Florida trying to get into rehab, and I help them out the best I can. Like, I'm not making any money off of it. I'm just doing it because people did it for me. Like, people call all the time still, and I just remember looking at myself being like, ah, you're a good dude, bro. Like, you just got to get out of this funk. And I remember going on Amazon, buying a couple new fits, like, kind of the you look good, you feel good type of thing. I
For
started
sure.
feeling better about myself, and that's just kind of how it started. And then I started going back to in-person meetings, and once I started doing that, it was NA originally, and then I had this dude yell at me the whole way home about, oh, you're never gonna get this because you're on the blah blah the medication and blah blah blah. And I'm like, I respect my elders, so I'm not gonna yell back at him, obviously, but like it was getting to the point where I was about to, and it happened a
Mm,
second time, and I'm like, you know what? I'm done with NA. I'm going back to AA, and I started going back to NA or AA, sorry, and that was probably about a month ago. And ever since then, that was, Corey invited me to his home group to go to. I went with him. Now I go to a meeting with him every Sunday. I'm going to see him speak on Saturday. Like, it's just a much more welcoming feeling there. Like when I go to that meeting on Sunday with him, like everybody comes up and it's like, "Oh, hey John, it's good to see you. Glad to see you back." Blah blah blah. I wasn't getting that at all. Like they were just NA was kind of like high school. They had their little cliques. They would
yeah.
wouldn't pick on you if they didn't know you type of thing. Like AA is a whole different feeling. And ever since I changed fellowships, it's been a complete 180 in the way that I feel about the program and about myself. These people are actually, happy to see me on a regular basis. And there's guys I go to the 9:45 at the little church right here. I go to the senior center on Sunday, and my girl Joni introduced me to a bunch of people she wanted me to get to know. This one guy Mike. he called me, left me a message last night, and my phone was on the charger, and we always be playing phone tag with each other because he be working, and he left a message. He goes, "Hey man, I'm proud of you. Like, I love how you're showing up, and you're doing the thing, and blah blah." And it was just nice to hear that from somebody. You know what I mean? And like, hearing that, and then hearing Corey kind of say similar things, and other people, and the people at IOP, being like, "Yo, you changed since you've been here," and that was the goal. Because I was in a spot where I was just kind of it was what it was basically, and now it's been a complete 180, and I've been able to make those changes due to the fact that I found the right fellowship to go to, and then on top of going to carrier, getting diagnosed properly, and
Yeah.
then taking the step to get on the EDHD medication that obviously I desperately needed because it was pretty obvious. But
You talked about things to make you feel good. I mean, I know right now you got the whole ankle injury, but do you think that you'll kind of get back to going to work out, getting a nice little pump and feeling good that way? Um, there's, for me at least, I know that there's something about going to the
I'm
gym where it regulates me mentally. Looking good physically also makes me feel good, like you're saying.
mhm. Yeah, nah, 100%. The funny thing was, even I started walking. Somebody told me they're like, "Oh, just start taking walks," and I'm like, "Just walk? Come on, like you ain't gonna lose weight just walking." Because I got up to probably about 190 at one point. Like I was getting out of breath walking up the stairs, and I remember one day I was gonna show my dad something, and all of a sudden my heart just starts pounding like out of nowhere. I'm like, what the fuck? I go outside to try to calm down, and it doesn't stop. And obviously I go say something to him, and he gets up out of his chair and he goes, "I can hear your heart beating from here." And I'm thinking I'm having a heart attack, basically. 'Cause I'm still smoking cigarettes at that point, like, and I'm sitting on the couch, and he goes and gets the little thing to put on your finger, the blood pressure cuff, the stuff to put under your tongue if I was having a heart attack.
Yeah.
And then the commercial that came on, I'll never forget it. This commercial comes on and it goes, "Did you know you could at 34 years old you can have a heart attack from smoking?" And I was just about to turn 34, so I got up, picked up however many cigarettes were left in the box, crushed them into 1,000 pieces, threw them in the trash, and I'm not saying I haven't smoked since, because I have, because like when I went to Carrier, they wouldn't let you vape or velo, so I had to smoke there. I'll smoke occasionally, have a cigarette here and there, but one a day, two a day most. And there's some days I don't have any. I'm good with the velos, the vape, and I'm just,
Do you think
obviously
that you'll
those
get
are,
off nicotine?
vices also. So, I'm hoping at some point, yeah, because I've been smoking cigarettes since I was 17. Now it's the velos, now it's the vape. I try to, the point of getting the velos was not to hit the vape so much, and it does help, right?
Hmm.
Because what did I probably hit twice since we've been on here? And, it just, it just,
Little by little.
it'll, you know, I don't know. Yeah, it just kind of, because when I was doing my research on it, it said, oh, when it gets dry is basically when it's done. And
Hmm.
I've never had it go dry, so I kind of say like, oh, it might be like the placebo effect of like, oh, it's still, wet, so it's still working. So it like stops me from, if I'm sitting on the couch watching the Yankees game or something, it stops me from getting up and going, having to go out and hit the bait.
Yeah.
So eventually, eventually, yeah, that's the plan. But right now, I just, I go with the mindset if it's not broke, don't fix. If it's not broken, don't try to fix it.
Yeah.
Um, I've been doing good, like I said. God willing, in January it'll be 5 years of all the hard stuff. And like I said, the match saved my life. A lot of people have their views on that, and that's fine. You're entitled to your opinion. But, in my eyes, that stuff saved my life. It saved countless other people's lives. And I mean, we could, you know, you can only wish that back in the day that stuff was more readily available for the people that, because we could, probably go on about all the people just from our graduating class or
I
people
was
that we
just
went to
thinking that.
school with that are no longer with us. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Like,
could have been saved.
Richie's 5 years was just like, I don't know, June. I still talk to his mom occasionally. Like,
Yeah, that was a sad one, man.
it's crazy. I mean,
Yeah, that was
yeah,
tough.
for sure. I mean, I remember the first one. The first one, like it was yesterday. It was Jeff. It
I
was
talked
Jeff, and I
about that
remember
one
that
before.
line. I remember that line.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
just to
I
say
remember.
goodbye. I remember his
Yeah,
mom.
I remember
His
pulling up.
mom crying, man.
Yeah, his
Just
mom
that
was.
that's forever burned in
Hmm.
my yeah. It was a tough one, man.
Yeah, I remember pull. Yeah, it was. I'll never forget pulling up there and seeing the line almost all the way down to A and P. And
Mhm.
somebody made the joke like, "Oh, Jeff always threw a banger." I'm like, "Yeah, he did." And but
Yeah,
the
rest in
sad
peace
part
to him,
about it
man.
was, from what I remember, is yeah, of course, I think about Jeff a lot. But I remember, getting a phone call because I'm standing in this long line, and they're like, "Where are you?" I'm like, "I'm in the line." And they're like, "Oh, the line, like come around the side. What's you in the side door?" I go in the side door, and there's that little room,
Yeah.
that you, people sit in, whatever, and I see people doing blues in there. I'm like, "What are you doing?" Like, yeah, I got high before I went there, but like, I'm not gonna go do that at the man's way. Like, come on,
Yeah, I'll
and
never forget the
that's
people
ingrained in
that
my head.
nah, I think the thing that pissed me off was the people that he was with the night that it happened, that they were there and I saw them.
Oh
That
yeah.
that
Hmm.
that really upset me, but
Uh-huh.
you know.
We
Uh,
actually, I'm not gonna obviously say his name, but when we found out who he was with, me and a couple other people took a ride to try to go find him, and I think lucky for us that we didn't find him, because if we would have, it wouldn't have ended good.
mhm.
Because it was just, all that, the grief on top of the
The anger.
sadness, and then the hate, the
Yeah.
anger, all that, it was just a bad mixture. We drove right up to his house, didn't see his car. We went, go to the spots where he's usually at. We couldn't find him, and like I said, that's probably lucky we didn't, because some of the people I was with, they were, back then were very, violent people, and if they would have got a hold of him, it wouldn't have ended well. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's
So I
crazy.
wanted to
Is it
ask you a
crazy to
little
think
bit.
that's?
Go on. I'm sorry.
Hmm.
What were
Nah,
you
it's
saying,
just
John?
crazy to think, that's like 50. Nah, I was just gonna say it's crazy to think that's almost 15 years ago now. You know what I mean? That
It's
was 2009.
ridiculous. Yeah. It's crazy. And he had, was it 2009? I think it was 2010, 2011, because he had spent some time down in Florida and then came back up. It was like a year after
Nah, it
graduation
was.
because we graduated
Nah,
in
I don't
9.
think. I think you're thinking of Kyle. I think you're thinking about Kyle, maybe,
I
because
don't know.
Jeff. Man, I'm pretty sure it was like right after graduation or shortly after. Like it was like, I want, maybe it was 2010,
I want to say it's
but
2010. I want to say
yeah,
because I was
it's
20 years
possible.
old. Yeah, I want to say I was 20 years old and he was 19.
Yeah,
Yeah, because it was before,
yeah, yeah.
it was just June and he was turning 20 that September.
20. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah,
I remember seeing him like a couple days before that, him and Jenna, like, and we were just chilling like we always did, and then like
yeah.
getting that phone call, I was like, what?
Oh man, it
You know what I
sucked, man. I
mean?
was at
Just
work when
thinking
I
like
got the
it's just,
call. Yeah, I'll never
yeah,
forget
I
that.
mean,
Yeah,
I'll never forget that, and just
that
thinking like,
was
oh, this, like
yeah, man.
it's
Even
some
my
kind of
mom
sick
remembers him.
joke, or somebody's playing a joke on me.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, he was anybody that ever came in contact with Jeff, he was just a rememberable person.
Yeah, for
That
sure, man.
smile, that laugh, that
Oh,
he
so
always,
infectious, man.
you know,
Such a
he,
good fucking dude, yo. I
yeah,
really,
what he really was, dude. He was such a good dude.
yeah, sad, man. I wanted to ask you though about the Suboxone, right? Because I mean,
Hmm.
I don't know too much. I'm no angel. I don't want anyone to think like I'm an angel because I've talked about the things that I've done. Um, you know,
Hmm.
I've always done things to have a story to tell. Is the kind of joke that I say, right? But obviously, I've never done things to the extent that you have, and so forgive me for being a little ignorant on like Suboxone and stuff, but just from things
Oh,
that
you
I've
good?
heard, right? Um, it comes with a lot of, I guess, side effects, right? Or things that, like, I know a big one is losing your teeth. Is that something that you've dealt with too?
No, that wasn't. I mean, my teeth got fucked up in Florida. They found me OD'd and my jaw was clenched,
Oh shit!
and they needed to get a breathing tube down my throat, and they basically had to jam it in there, and they jacked up all my teeth. And then when I went to the dentist after that, they were basically like, they compromised the rest of your teeth. And I'm like, what does that mean? And they were like, basically, it doesn't matter what you do, bro, you could brush them and floss them 1,000 times a day. They're basically just gonna chip and fall out, and that's eventually that's what happens. So, now
Wow.
obviously that's, you know, why, like, like when I talk, I don't really open my mouth very wide. It doesn't really bother me anymore. People said shit to me about it all the time. It doesn't bother me. I still, you know, still, still had girlfriends, all that stuff. But then, but obviously it's something I want to get taken care of now that, we're doing all these other things. It's on the list of things to do. The list keeps getting longer, but it's
Yeah.
gonna get done eventually. Because it's like at some point I was like, I'm only 32 years old with dentures, but like dentures aren't really the same as it was back in the day. Like
Oh
they're a
yeah.
lot
No,
different
man.
now. Like you can't tell.
Yeah.
So
Hey,
yeah,
how
it's
many
on the
times
list of
have you
things to
OD'd,
do.
John? If you don't mind me asking that, because I was gonna ask you if you've ever OD'd, just because I was thinking about a mutual friend that you
Countless.
and I have. Really?
Yeah, countless. Yeah, and I mean they
Damn,
found me in places they really shouldn't have found. Like they should never have found me. To be honest with you, I mean the lady.
you got lucky.
Some lady was on the jog and like found me like off on a path somewhere like up against a tree. 'Cause I guess she heard me like snoring or something or like making no. I don't know the story. I just know what the nurses told me at the hospital. But like countless times, like too many to count. And the fact that you think about it every day. It's like why me? Why was I the one that got out of all these situations. Because everybody said like the only way you're leaving Florida is in a box, and a lot of people thought that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's crazy to think about that. I'm the one that because I look at my Facebook stat, my memories every day, and read the stupid shit I used to post for people to read. And there be
That's
people in
all
the
of us.
comments like, "How are you still alive? How are you still alive? How are you still breathing?" And guess what? All those people are dead now. You know what I mean? And I was the one that got home and got clean. It's just,
I'm sure your parents are
it,
real
you know,
happy to
it,
have you home, though. Like despite everything
nah,
that
nah,
you've
for
put them
sure.
through, yeah, they're probably
I
glad
mean,
that you're under their roof now and they really know that you're safe. Whereas before it
safe,
was,
yeah. I mean,
yeah,
hmm
it was
they had
maybe
no
they were
idea.
waiting for a
They
phone
had
call.
no clue.
Yeah, yeah.
hmm
Damn, man.
I can't tell you how many times they probably got phone calls about me AMAing from treatment centers. Like I was the king of AMAing. As soon as you cut down my Suboxone, I was out the door. You know what I mean? So they got those phone calls a lot. I'm sure they had the same thoughts. I'm gonna get that phone call one day that he's not, he didn't make it, and for whatever
You would leave
reason,
when they would cut that down.
whatever. I mean, I, at at certain points it was just about, getting the meds and feeling good, right? And then once they
Right,
start
right.
cutting you down, from, you start at 8, then you go to 6 to 4 to 2, whatever. Once it got low, or, they weren't giving me what I wanted them to give me, I would just bounce and go somewhere else and start the process over again. And then they would give me, at the new detox, I would start basically all over again at the high dose that I wanted, so I could feel the way I wanted to feel. And then it was basically like that, at most places. There was
What
only, I
changed?
probably, I mean, eventually after I went to that IOP, I was like, I can't keep doing this. Like, this is for the birds now, kind of like, all the people we lost and everything. And it's just like, you gotta make that decision for yourself. It don't matter, bro. Like, I went to rehabs, that were $8 million mansions on the intercoastal, and it didn't get me clean. It took
Yeah.
me going to jail, going to that halfway house, coming home, going to that IOP to finally be able to say, like, all right, enough's enough, and keep it at that, and not let anything get in the way of that. Like,
I'm glad
I
you
ain't
did,
gonna
man.
say I haven't been around it. No, I appreciate it. When I first came home, I can't say I wasn't around it. 'Cause I was quite a few times with, I'm not gonna say his name, but he also passed away. I mean, Chris Euro, but it just, it never like tempted me that way. You know what I mean? Like, he it just got to the point, like I said, when the fentanyl came out and it was in everything, like,
Yeah.
and it's just gonna kill you. Like, you're not gonna get me like that. It's just not. That's not how my story's gonna end. You know what I mean? Like, I say this to people sometimes, like, yo, if the China White took me out when I was 19, all right, that's because I didn't know any better. But like now, you're telling me like this little bit of fentanyl, if I do that, it's gonna kill me. I'm not going out that way. I'm just not.
What's up, story seekers? Today I want to talk to you about a product I'm a huge fan of and am happy to have partnered up with. Backtrack is a portable alcohol monitor that allows you to track your BAC. I'm a huge advocate for drinking responsibly. That means knowing when you've had too much to drink and will not get behind the wheel. Let's be honest, sometimes the drinks are flowing and we lose track of how many we've had, and liquor courage makes us feel invincible. Inhibition is lost, and we totally disregard what could happen to ourselves or anyone if we were to drive under the influence. That's why I'm a fan of this product, because you carry it with you when you know you're going to have more than a few and can see your alcohol level, what your alcohol level measures at. I want you to enjoy life and enjoy drinks, but I want you to do it responsibly. Check out backtrack.com and use code STORIES at checkout. That's BAC track.com and use code STORIES, STORIES, at checkout. Yeah. Yeah, man. I'm proud of you. You overcame a lot. Addiction's not an easy thing
I
to overcome,
appreciate it.
so yeah, man, addiction is definitely not it's not an easy thing to overcome. On top of that, it sounds like you had a lot of undiagnosed, cognitive and mental health going on. So it's awesome to see that you're taking care of all that. Like you said, one step at a time. You're doing things to make you feel better, um, that you neglected for so long. So, kudos to you, man. I'll give you your flowers for that for sure. Um, so, what are you up to nowadays? I know that you were talking
I
a little bit
appreciate
about
it.
the. Yeah, man, of course. You were talking a little bit about the card and memorabilia game, and you've always been someone, as far as I've known, you've always collected your like sports tickets anytime we've gone to games or even Warp Tour. I still have my Warp Tour tickets,
Mhm.
dude. I still have all that stuff. So, um,
I do
talk
too.
to me about it. Talk to
Um,
me. What's that looking like?
I mean, basically, somebody we went to school with hit me up and was like, "Hey, like my dad has a bunch of this memorabilia. Like I know it's worth money." And like I knew Corey had been in the card game for a while,
Mm,
and I'm like, "Oh, it can't be that hard." You know what I mean?
yeah.
She brings me this stuff, and I'm thinking, "Oh, it's gonna be in and out in a week, right?"
eBay.
It don't work like that. It's a whole process. You need to be super patient. Um, I went to a card show with Corey 2 weeks ago and watched him wheeling and dealing with these people doing trades and whatever he was doing. It was like, I was like, damn, bro, that's impressive, bro. Because, like, he was just doing his thing. And I know, like, he's seen the stuff I got and, like, he knows that, it's worth a decent little chunk of change. Like, but then again, you got to find the people, you got to get the cards graded. Like if there's
Right.
a specific card that's worth getting graded, you send it out to PSA, and it takes like 2 months for the card to come back. So you got to sit on 2 months, and then the card comes back, and you're hoping it's a 9 or a 10, but it can come back like a 6 or a 7, and that like decreases the value of the card tremendously. So like it's like a big
What are they
gamble
graded
basically
on?
on a lot of it. You know what I mean?
Like the condition,
The condition of the
obviously.
card,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah, the condition. So basically, like you can go buy a pack right now, right, and pull the card out of the pack and send it out to get graded, and it's not gonna come back a 10. It's just
Oh,
not.
yeah. Sure.
People think, oh,
The
I just
rarity.
opened it. It just yeah, and that's what it comes down to right now. The baseball cards that are very popular are the ones from the 60s. And I got a couple of those. I got a signed Whitey Ford that's gonna go out and get graded in September because that's the next time they start grading again. So, that card's worth, and it's signed too. So like, you know, the cards are worth $800 if it's in good condition. Then add the autograph to it. It could be almost 2 grand, 1,800, something like that. It all depends, but you know, I just, it kind of happened like out of nowhere. And like I said, I got too deep into it too quick. And that's when I realized I had to go get the help I needed to get. But like it started with the Pokemon cards. I remember going to the mall, the Woodbridge Mall, and going into the store with my Pokemon cards. I was like, hey man, can you look at my cards? And he's like, yeah. And he goes, man, these are in bad shape. And I'm like, oh shit. Because those little binders we kept cards in as kids, they
Yeah.
never should have did that. Never
Yeah, you
should
were
have
telling
did
me
that.
that.
They all should have been in like, hard plastic cases like this, in the sleeves and stuff.
Mm,
But obviously we didn't know that back then. But if you're lucky enough to find something now that's in good shape and you can, there's money to be made. But like I said in the beginning, if you're not patient, if this ain't the hobby for you, could it turn into a career potentially? Yes, but it's a slow process. Like it's not, like when I sold those Pokemon cards and he told me they were in bad shape and then he handed me the piece of paper and it said 170. I was like, holy shit. Like if they were in good shape, it would have been, whatever.
yeah.
And then I ended up selling another like four on whatnot for like $50. So I made like 210 off, like 19 Pokemon cards or whatever. I'm like, wow, that was pretty easy. And whatnot is basically like live eBay. And I was killing it on there, honestly. Like I was doing real good on there. And I was getting the first like week or two I was doing it, I was getting, three, four, five, 600 people in the room at a time. Just like my stuff was just different. Like I was watching other people's stuff and then I was like, yo, some of this is just really boring. Like people would be like, oh, this is a Roger Clemens card, like, and it's just like super boring. And I'm like, I'm gonna do something different. And I did something different. I play music in the background. We talk in the chat. I wouldn't always be doing auctions like these people. Everybody, like, people would just do auctions like the whole time. I would do it occasionally, and whatever. And then I got that kid with the Pokemon card. That kid was like 15 years old, and I'm like hoping and praying, like, yo, I hope you didn't steal mommy and daddy's credit card, and I don't get charged back for this. But it's all a process. It's all a
Yeah.
process. It really is. And now I got Corey. I kind of got Corey. I don't want to say on my team, but he's helping me out. So the process is going to start going a little smoother. You know, I I did everything I could with what I had. I priced everything out. Everything got comped. Like, Corey went through everything. It's just like it is what it is. Like you think this one card, like there was the one card, the white, well, not the white for what was it, Phil Rizzuto. I thought I was like, yo, this is gonna be a big hit, 1959. He goes, dude, this is in horrible shape. He's like, he goes, I don't know if they go into the negatives in grading cards, but this would be a negative. I'm like, damn, bro,
Oh,
I thought this was
wow.
gonna be one of them we were gonna send out. So it just depends. It depends what you're sitting on. And the other thing, my parents did not throw anything away from my childhood. It's all in my basement. And right now, people our age obviously are having kids and they want to
Hmm.
play with the toys that they had from their childhood. And people are paying crazy money for that stuff. And I
Yeah.
literally got it all sitting in my basement. So I got to start going through that too, plus my own stuff. But, it, like I said, patience is key. It's gonna take time. You're not gonna become a millionaire overnight. It's just not gonna work like that. It just you gotta be patient, and it's just, like I said, right now it's a hobby. It's a cool hobby to have. I get to look at cards all day. I get to talk sports with people.
Yeah.
Like I made a TikTok account like about it. You know what I mean? Like
That's awesome. I'll have
two
to
weeks
follow you.
ago. I got like, I don't know, 500 followers or something, like,
Yeah.
and it ain't nothing crazy. It's just me showing things that I got. It's just, there's different avenues. Obviously, there's all these card shops, there's memorabilia places, there's card shows. They got the fanatics. Like, there's like a million different avenues that you can go through, but like I said, patience is the virtue, you know. You gotta do your homework. Because if you sit there and you're like, I'm just gonna go sell this, you can go walk into a pawn shop and you could probably sell. I can sell some of these balls real quick, but I'm
Yeah.
not gonna get full value for them. I'm gonna get maybe half if I'm lucky, and that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get as much as I can for it, But
Yeah, you gotta be smart
it's
about it.
all, yeah, you gotta be real smart about it. Like I said, it really is a gamble at the end of the day. You're gambling on. Like, like just say I send this card out, right? This is
Mhm.
one I'm never gonna send out. Like we're gambling on. All right, so if it comes back at 10, I can sell that card for like almost $300. But if it comes back at 9 or an 8 or even a 7, it could be $170 card then. Like it just depends.
Yeah.
And you
Wow,
just gotta
man.
hope. You just gotta hope that, you know, that some of these cards come back, like I got a bunch of them just sitting here, like Roger Clemens, like, and it's all different. Like baseball right now is really the '60s. Like nobody cares about the some '70s. Nobody cares about the '80s and the '90s. None of that.
Not yet.
Football is a little different. Like football, like you get the Patrick Mahomes,
Yeah, they
the
want today's
Raptors,
players.
whatever. That card raw could go for $700 without it even getting graded. So, football's different. Every sport's different, basically. So, and I got a little bit of everything. So it's like, trying to figure out what moves the fastest. I put some stuff on eBay. Like, you know, I'm getting some people looking at it. I got some watchers on some stuff. You were talking about the ticket stubs. I used to literally pick them up in the parking lot after the games.
Yeah.
And now people buy those as like collector's
It's so
items. Like I
crazy,
got the
man.
ticket from Eli and Peyton. I know, like my dad would be like, "Why are you picking this crap up?" And now, like, I got the ticket from Eli and Peyton's first start, like when they played each other for the
That's
first
so
time. I
dope.
got a 2000 NFC Championship game ticket, full ticket. Like I haven't seen anybody else that had a full one. I've seen ripped ones, but not completely full.
Yeah,
So I
that's
mean,
dope,
it,
man.
it
And they
just
don't even
depends.
give tickets out
Yeah,
anymore.
it's fun.
Cause even my bad. Go on.
Nope.
Yeah, they don't do
No, you're
physical
good. I was just
copies
saying
anymore.
now about the tickets.
Yeah, they like it's crazy.
Nope.
Like even you go to the box
Nope.
office, they're like, "All right, what's your email?" And then boom, it's all digital. You know, it like it takes away
On
that
your
like
phone.
factor.
Yeah.
You know, so that's so dope, man.
Yeah.
Like yeah, we like the convenience of it,
Yeah.
but there's nothing like having like a ticket stub. You know what I
That
mean?
ticket stuff. Yeah. I mean, going through them, I found 2004 and 2005 Warp Tour
Yeah,
in
I
that
have all.
bag.
I have
That
oh
was pretty
04, oh
fun.
05, oh 06. I got a couple Devils games ones, I believe. And I think those are from like
Hmm.
2013, maybe 2014. I gotta double check, but
Hmm.
I think that's like the last
Yeah.
time that they were really giving out physical copies. They might be even 2012. You
Copies.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
crazy,
Yeah.
man.
It might have ended around then.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, I miss the physical tickets, getting to hold them, give them to somebody, and now they just
Feeling the
scan
little
your
tear.
phone and you walk in. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
It's
like,
different,
well, the good thing now that they didn't tear some of them, they're
right? They
full,
just
right?
beep them.
So
Yeah.
now, like the Eli, they scan them. Like at one
Hmm.
point, I think it was like 2006, they started putting the barcodes on them where
Right.
they would just scan them. So
Hmm.
like some of the tickets I have that I'm selling are full tickets because they just scanned them. They didn't rip them.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's just like I said, it's patience is really the virtue in this. It don't go as quick as, I originally thought. You know what I mean? Once I sold those Pokemon cards, I'm like, this is moving like 2 seconds. I'm gonna be good.
Yeah.
Just don't
Yeah.
work that way. But
That's
now that I
cool
got
though.
Corey, kind of helping me out, showing me the ropes, I'm gonna be all right. We're gonna send some stuff out to get graded, and hopefully it comes back a 9 or a 10, and we make some money off it, and then get that memorabilia moving because we need to get you need certificate, a COA, certificates of authenticity for the autographs, or
Mm.
else nobody's gonna pay you full price for an autograph if you don't have something that
This.
says
Yeah.
this is Derek Jeter's autograph. They're just not.
Right.
So,
That makes sense though.
that's on
You
the
know.
to-do list too. But yeah,
Yeah, man. No, that's awesome. I think that it's good that you have this hobby too, because it's kind of keeping you focused. I know that you've already been you're going on 5 years on on sobriety. So the road to recovery, like it's a long road, and having hobbies helps you stay out of trouble. So keep doing what you're doing. I can't wait to see where you are in a year. I'm sure that you're gonna probably open up your own place one day. Who knows? I could see that. Johnny shops and crazy
I
shit,
hope
and
so.
that'd be dope, man. Yo, does your family still have the Giants tickets? Because I remember you guys had season passes forever.
Nah, when they when they built the new stadium, they wanted uh they were their personal seat licenses, and where we were sitting, they were $25,000 per seat, and we
Good
had five
God.
seats. So,
Yeah.
well, we had three. My dad's friend had two. He
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
moved into the end zone and got it down to like 10 per, and that wasn't even like the tickets. That was just for the right to sit in the seat. Oh, you get first dibs on concerts. And like, we don't care about the concerts. We're trying to go to the game. So it got to the point where, my dad made a decision to kind of say no on that because that was a ton of money back then. Still a
It's
ton
a
of
ton
money
of money
now. And
now.
now
Yeah.
the funny
That's
thing about
crazy.
that is some of those, yeah, just to go to a game. Like if you want to go to a Giants game now, like right, it's like $150 to sit up in the 300s. That's
Yeah, it's
nuts.
disgusting. Yeah. It's
And it's
ridiculous.
like, and that stadium is big old air conditioning unit. I hate it. Hate everything about it. Don't like it.
No, you don't
They
like
could have
it?
just re-renovated the old Giant Stadium. I don't like it at all. Because like the old Giant Stadium, you could literally go up any escalator and walk around the entire top, middle, bottom, and get to wherever you needed to go. This
Mm-hmm.
place, there's walls just in random ass places, and you got to figure out how to,
Yeah,
go down the escalator,
navigate.
back up the escalator to get to your seat. It's a pain in the ass. Yeah, it's just I don't like it. I'm not a fan of it. But I mean, with a
um,
billion dollars, I thought you could have built something a little better. I mean, like Jerry's World was $1 billion, and that's a beautiful stadium. The Saints one. There's a couple other ones. SoFi. Like, they were all
yeah.
in the same price range. And why does ours look like a giant ass air conditioning unit? Like, come on. But
That's funny,
hopefully
man.
one day, hopefully one day I could, if I make enough money, I can get the season tickets back or get on the list and get them. That would
Yeah,
be
man.
cool.
Yeah, I hear you.
But
I hate the
we
traffic
go to
going.
Rutgers games, football games from time to time.
Okay, yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah,
They got a few games coming up. I know their preseason starting. I saw on VetTix. I saw some tickets that people are donating for veterans and stuff. Rutgers games. I think. Shoot, I can't remember.
no, nice. Yeah,
Yeah, I can't remember who they're playing, but
they
they're
play
playing some.
tomorrow. Their first game's tomorrow.
Maybe that's what I saw the tickets for.
Yeah, Ohio. They're playing
It
Ohio
was
tomorrow.
Ohio. Okay, I didn't want to be wrong. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're
Yeah,
playing
they're playing
Ohio.
them twice.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was
Okay.
Ohio.
All right. Cool. Yeah. Yeah. I was
Well,
like, wait,
Ohio
Ohio
and then
sounds.
Miami of Ohio is two separate schools here.
Oh no, I thought I saw. Okay, maybe that's why I read Ohio twice. But all right, man. I'm not gonna hold you up
Yeah.
any longer. But one thing that I do like to ask all of my guests before I let them go is if anyone could take something away from this episode, John, what would you want that to be? It doesn't have to be anything we discussed. Just anything in the world.
I mean, if a junkie like me, as bad as I was and as fucked up in the game as I was, can do it, so can you. You know what I mean? If you out there struggling, the help is out there and available to you. Whether that's mental health, recovery based, whatever it is, there's support systems for everything. Utilize them, take advantage of them, because it could save your life. You know what I mean? I don't want to keep losing friends. I don't want to lose any more of them. I want to keep people, trying to keep people here as long as we can. So one thing that I want people to take from this is, if I can do it, and I was bad, I was, they used to call me the worst of the worst, but I came out on the other side of it, and if you're struggling, you can too, 100%. You just got to put in the work. If you don't put in the work, you're not gonna get any, return from your investment. You put in the work, you see where you can get. So
I'm sure that you're seeing that now, man. I'm super proud of you, and I'm so happy that you decided to come and share your story. It's so powerful, man. I really, I think back to like when we were kids, fifth grade dance, just playing volleyball with the balloons and shit, and like it's so
yeah.
crazy how. Yeah, man, it's so crazy how like life takes us in different directions, and once we got to high school, our paths kind of separated. You went your way, I went my way, and I haven't talked to you in probably since before we graduated high school. So we're talking that was 15 years ago. So we're talking I haven't talked to you
Yeah.
probably closer to 20 years, right? And just to
Hmm.
just to see like I don't know, man. I just to see how far you've come because I'm not gonna lie to you. I've always heard of how bad you had gotten, right? And I never had any opinion about it. It was just kind of like okay, you know what I mean? Like, well, like it's a shame, right? And so to
Hmm.
see that you are now on the other side of it and we're having this conversation today, um, to see that you haven't changed from being like the Johnny that I grew up knowing and loving. You know what I'm saying? Like that's so that's so awesome. I really am just so proud of you, man, and I really hope that you continue on this path that you're on. That you keep whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. I hope that you do achieve it. You know, um, and just God bless. Honestly, man, you're incredible. And so again, just thank you so much. And whatever you need from me, just know that I'm here.
I appreciate that. Thank you for the kind words. Again, thank you for, allowing me to come on and share my story. Because, like you said, it's my first time ever sharing it on a platform like this. And like I said in the beginning, if, one person, decides, hey, I ain't gonna do this anymore because of this, it was worth it. So,
Yeah,
again, I appreciate it. It's always love, Michelle. We've always
always,
been,
man.
you know what I mean? And same goes for you. We got each other's numbers now. We can text. I know you don't like to talk on the phone, so we'll keep it to the text. But yeah,
One
we'll
of these
definitely
days,
stay
I'll
in
call
touch
you,
for
man.
sure.
Yeah, one of these
Yeah,
days I'll
one
call you.
day.
I'm so bad at even the texting, man. There's times where like I'll read a text and forget to respond. So I
Hmm.
apologize to anyone that I've done that to. I'm sorry. I'll try to be better. It's so funny though, because like when I was younger, I was always on my phone just texting, and like now as I've gotten
Hmm.
older, I don't know. I'll read the text and then I go and do something else. So it's a bad habit,
Yep.
but I'll correct myself. Hey John, I know that you mentioned that you have a TikTok now. If you want people to find you, where can they find you?
I don't even know the name of it. It's called MVP Sports and Memorabilia.
Perfect. So everyone, go ahead check him out. That's on TikTok. If you want to plug in your Instagram, what is do you know your Instagram offhand?
I mean, my Instagram doesn't have anything to do with the cards or anything,
All right,
Facebook,
we'll
nothing
scratch
like
that.
that. So it's just TikTok for right now.
Hey man, what I want to do for you, before we, so when we cut this, just stay on. I want to get your
Hmm.
address. I think I remember it. We'll confirm if I remember your childhood address. But I wanted to send you something. Um, I actually am sponsored now by the ends pouches that I was talking to you about with the nootropics.
Hmm.
I want to send you some pouches so that you could try it out. Let me know what you think about them. So.
Try it out. All right, for sure. Yeah, I'll check
Yeah,
it
it's
out.
no nicotine. Like I said, it's just nootropics. So they got the focus blend and they got the energy blend. So we'll see. We'll see if something helps you. See if you
All
like
right,
it.
for sure. Yeah. All
All
right,
right, man.
cool. Sounds
Yeah,
good.
definitely, man. And for those that are interested in trying ends, I might as well plug it in right now. Go ahead and use code stories at the checkout. All right, so stories spelled normally STORIES. And yeah, thank you everyone for listening. And I hope that you took something away from my buddy here, John. Great kid. So nice to catch up, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.